Good evening. This is Monday, October 23rd, 15 days until the 2006 midterm elections. If, when any Democrat advocates the need for a change of course in Iraq, it is automatically labeled cutting and running, what is it called when President Bush not only abandons the very term stay the course, but also tries to claim that he was never about staying the course in the first place? In the etymology of our current politics, there can be but one answer: flip-flopping. Our fifth story on the countdown: the administration's narrative of Iraq gets a rewrite as the cold, hard facts on the ground there keep spiraling out of control. Later on in this news hour, my special comment on the Republicans' narrative on terror and how the party seems willing to buy commercials in which to do the terrorists' work for them. But we begin tonight with a reminder of what is at stake in Iraq. The number of American troops there killed already reaching 87 this month, with one more week in October to go, making this the worst month there since November 2004. Defense Secretary Rumsfeld today attributing the increase in death tolls solely to the Islamic holy month of Ramadan, when violence traditionally spikes. Ramadan ending yesterday, as did apparently the president's story regarding that phrase, stay the course. The phrase, to invoke a past administration, is apparently no longer operative. With the White House on spin control in the wake of a report claiming the administration is drawing up a timetable to pressure the Iraqi government for concrete results, with the election only 2 weeks away. Mr. Bush claiming to ABC's George Stephanopoulos that he has never really been a stay the course kind of guy.
Hey, listen, we've never been stay the course, George. We will complete the mission. We will do our job and help achieve the goal, but we're constantly adjusting the tactics.
The White House seeming to make the fatal error once again of forgetting that in this case, as in so many before it, that videotape was invented by the Ampex company in 1956.
We'll stay the course in Iraq, and yet we must stay the course because the end result is in our nation's interest. And that's why we're going to stay the course in Iraq. We're there to stay the course, and we will help a free society emerge. If we don't lose our nerve, if we stay the course, someday down the road an American president will be working with democratically elected leaders in the broader Middle East, would have the nerve to stay the course and help them succeed. As a matter of fact, we will win in Iraq so long as we stay the course. We will stay the course. We will help this young Iraqi democracy succeed.
Never change or stay the course in midstream. A different tack today from White House Press Secretary Tony Snow, asserting that the president had to abandon the term stay the course because none of the administration's critics understood the subtleties of what he meant.
He stopped using it.
Why did he stop using it?
Because it lent the wrong impression about what was going on. And it allowed critics to say, well, here's an administration that's just embarked upon a policy and not looking at what the situation is, when in fact it's just the opposite. The president is determined not to leave Iraq short of victory, but he also understands that it's important to capture the dynamism of the efforts that have been ongoing to try to make Iraq more secure and therefore enhance the clarification or the greater precision.
Is the president responsible for people think it's stay the course and seem in fact described it that way himself?
No.
Let me call in our own Richard Wolff, also senior White House correspondent for Newsweek magazine. Richard, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
Does the White House really expect swing voters to believe the president when he says that he was never about staying the course, or to believe Tony Snow when he says the administration's critics just don't understand what was meant by this stay the course? And if not, at whom is this extreme revisionist history actually aimed?
Keith, who are you going to believe, the president or your lying eyes? Look, you know, there are so many talking points to sort of manage here. It's sometimes easy to get them confused. Who are they aiming this at? They're aiming it at everyone who is running away from them, and in large part that is the Republican base. You know, I was just out in Tennessee last week, and you have the Republican candidate for Senate down there pleading with audiences, don't make this a referendum on national issues. I know you have these big concerns. Please just think about me. And the more these people, these Republican candidates, the Republican base, try and distance themselves from the president, the harder it is to stick to the current strategy, both for the election and for the war in Iraq. Everyone has got to try and stick together in the president's view. Otherwise, the war in Iraq will fall apart. So, you know, the problem here is, of course, one of consistency. This is an administration that used to be known for message discipline, and what we're seeing is just so many multiple messages, people just can't keep up with it.
For all the talk over the weekend of a change, not just in terms, but in tactics in Iraq, no one appears able to address the question of what the administration's actual strategy is for Iraq. Is there one besides waiting for the next administration?
Well, that's a good question. There are two strategies. One is political and one is military. The political strategy, I'm afraid, has run into the ground. It was based on the new Iraqi government establishing national reconciliation, renegotiating the constitution, and establishing security. And none of those things have happened. The government can barely stand itself up. Then the security track, of course, has also run into the ground because there are all these security forces being trained up and there's no more security. So the strategy hasn't worked, and I'm told very sincerely by administration officials, senior White House officials, that, you know, what used to happen was the president would call people in and there would be sort of photo op consultations. Now he's really calling people in and saying, please give me your ideas. I need those new ideas. And so they're looking for a new strategy, but and that's obviously in itself an admission that the current strategy isn't working.
But calling in the meeting over the weekend of his top commanders, senior members of the national security team to discuss Iraq, the defense secretary, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, secretary of state, but these are the people who designed the current approach. Is there new blood at that meeting or at any other meeting? Is there somebody coming in with a fresh perspective on Iraq that would actually have the president's ear?
Well, some of the people, not in Saturday's meeting, but generally coming in are more academics, people who know more about the region than maybe some of the earlier advisors of the president. So you're seeing some of that. But I think what we're seeing different in these strategy sessions is a more vocal assessment of what's it like on the ground from the military commanders. I'm told that military commanders have had enough of hearing the president say all the time, well, the commanders don't ask me for anything new. What we're seeing is a much more honest, much more direct conversation that the current strategy on the security track isn't working. They want to see something different on the political track. That's to say, this Iraqi government doing something.
Well, how does this, though, lastly, all jibe with the Karl Rove strategy about the midterms to portray Iraq when it needs to be portrayed from a position of strength?
Well, this gets you back to how people are trying to separate themselves from the administration and from the president. In some ways, the biggest issue in this election isn't Iraq, it's the president and his conduct. 30% of the base still loves the president. Independent voters are moving away from him in their droves. Trying to hold these two sides together is the biggest challenge, and I'm afraid Karl Rove's script isn't really got much legs outside of the Beltway.
Richard Wolff of MSNBC and Newsweek. As always, sir, our great thanks.
Anytime.